obviously you spent time in prison.
Yeah.
Is it because of this environment you're in and the people you're around?
You know, it's crazy because the first time I actually went to prison was for something called sus, which is something called, and it was attempted theft of an unknown person. There was no person. There was no crime.
The law of sus.
The police at that time had this agenda to give as many black kids a criminal record as they could. And it's like in today's court, none of these cases would stand up. Do you know what I mean? I actually spent 4 months in detention centre for this. Do you know what I mean?
How old were you?
16.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
That's law of sus, innit? When they used to bring that out, that basically meant that anything, they could just suspect you of something with no evidence, no probable cause, and straight away
I got convicted of that. And unfortunately, my grandmother died thinking, because you know the older generation, they thought, well, if you got arrested, you must have done it. You know what I mean? My grandmother died thinking that I was guilty of it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was just standing on the tube at Oxford Circus station, and the police come and said, "Oi, I saw that." I said, "Saw what?" "I saw you just try to put your hand in that woman's bag." I said, "What woman?" "She got on the train, she's gone." I got convicted of that. And I went to detention centre for it. That's the first time I went to jail.
And no evidence,
no evidence,
witness,
no
nothing.
Nothing. So I spent 4 months in Hollisley Bay for that. And
them times it was detention centre.
Detention centre, left, right.
I mean, you think, nowadays it's still tough on crime, like for certain things. But I mean, that was an agenda. That was a proper agenda. Let's get as many young black boys a criminal record as we can.
Yeah.
Sad,
and that is what they've done.
For those that don't know, you can actually go and research this. There's documentaries made on it. There's studies that have been done on like sus and how that affected the Afro-Caribbean.
It was a proper agenda.
It's crazy.
So how many times did you go to prison?
3 times I was to prison. That was the first time. The other 2 times were like for violent crime.
So what age was the last time you went to prison?
The last time I went to prison was 30 years ago.
Okay.
30 years ago. I was in jail on firearms charges, possession of firearms and possession with intent.
How did all of this affect your outlook on life at that time?
At that time, I didn't really care. Do you know what I mean? Because at that time, I would just be like, whatever, I'll just blaze after you, bruv. You know what I mean? I'd be like, what? I'm just gonna do what I'm doing. I remember once like shooting at someone 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Brixton High Road. I didn't care. I did not care.
Those were the times and ages, innit?
Yeah, I just didn't care.
Okay, corral.
I was like, what? 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right on the high street, bam, I'm blasting. So what? You know what I mean? It's like, how crazy is that? Do you know what I'm saying?
How do you get to a point where that's normality?
It's just normal. And plus as well, you got friends, all of you thinking the same. You're all carrying, you're all moving the same. You're all like that. You all got that mentality. Like one little thing, bam, you're gone. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's so crazy. But it's that environment that you live in. And obviously, as I said, the police had an agenda. So, it's us against them.
Yeah,
and what they do, they make you become that way. Do you know what I mean? Because of the way that they're dealing with us. They're the snatch squads. They just like drive up in their vans, come out and start beating you with like truncheons and stuff. And just like, you're just on the block. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's the way you end up. Do you know what I mean?
So while all of this is going on, is the music stuff still going on?
Yeah, the music was in the background. Do you know what I mean? The music was in the background. I was fortunate enough to because I went to boarding school as well. I went to boarding school when I was like 12 years old. Do you know what I mean? My mum sent me away to boarding school. My mum was very smart. She was a social worker. She was the head of Area 5. So she just thought, you know what, this guy is, if I don't get him out of this environment, he's going to kill someone or he's going to die. Do you know what I mean? And that was the bottom line of it. So I went to boarding school in Berkshire, in Newbury, and I was there until I was 16. And then when I came out, I kind of joined the gang. Do you know what I mean? And that's when I got caught up in the sus thing. So
was music the dream?
No, because music was I was always buying records and I was always into music, but I never looked at it as a way that I was going to get into it in that way. When I got to about 18, 19, then I kind of thought, you know what, I like this. Do you know what I mean? And I started hanging out with different people.
Okay.
And I started seeing a different way of life. I started kind of venturing into the West End and thinking, you know what, and meeting other people from East London, West London, and thinking, wow, you know, there are other people. And then I just got more into the music, and I met up with my business partner, Brian G. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, oh, you need to stop that street life, man. You know what I mean? Because I had all these records. My uncles gave me like thousands of records. And he's like, man, you got all these records. You should come on the radio, do pirate radio. I was like, pirate radio? What's all that about? And he's like, man, you should come and do it. Oh. So he showed me, he actually brought me to his house and showed me how to do a radio show. Do you know what I mean?
Do you feel like these kind of people and these kind of conversations, I don't want to say like break the cycle, but that kind of feeling
it breaks the cycle because...
Did you feel like you were in that cycle though?
I was in a vicious cycle.
Okay,
do you know
so
what I mean?
that did help you break the cycle.
Yeah, it helps you break the cycle. You have to change your environment.
Yeah.
You have to change your environment. You have to change. If you don't change your environment, you will not change your mindset and your thinking, because you'll always be in what my therapist calls an ADHD loop.
Okay.
Where you just hyper-focus on something and loop it over and over in your head, and it's highly damaging to you. Do you know what I mean? Nothing good comes of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's like you were building up these connections the whole time, really.
Yeah. So you meet. I was meeting different people, going to different places. Then I met up with the guys from Soul to Soul. I started going to African Centre every Sunday and just meeting
everyone
different
talks
people.
about the African Centre.
My brother, it is the church.
Everyone talks about it. No,
it's the church.
Everyone talks about it.
It's the church.
Yeah.
That's where I got my education.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? That's where I got my education, music, and just being more social and being more softer with my life and just being more tolerant and being able to interact with different people. Because up until that point, I was like, what?
Brixton Badman.
Just like, what? Yeah. All the time. Yeah. And then, you soften and you start talking to people. And
also, music lifts your spirits, doesn't it, anyway?
Think, I don't have to be so unkind. I don't have to be so hard. You don't have to be that way, you know what I mean? But until you change your environment and your thinking, that's the way you're going to be. That's all you know?
We heard also that your logo for your record label was created, designed whilst you were in prison. I
was in Brixton prison.
So the story's true, tell us.
I was in Brixton prison and I had this record, like an iconic record, Leviticus, The Burial.
Yeah.
Big, bad and heavy, right? And the record was just about to go out, but I was in prison, right? And my business partner and I were on the phone and he said, we need a logo for it. So I said to him, and I was in the fours at the time, and I was on the phone and I was like, well, I want a Versace head with a black man's face on it. So I spoke to him about it and he's like, what? All right then. So he just kind of interpreted what I meant. When he come to see me, he had a couple of sketches.
Sick. That's so cool.
Sick.
And I was like, yeah, this one. And then we used that as the record, as a logo for the record, but then we used it.
Was that on the sleeve? Was that
on the sleeve? Yeah.
And
then after we used it for our actual record label, and it's still there now today.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
crazy,
incredible.
Proof that you can make steps whilst you're inside.
Yeah, well, I was in jail and he was talking to me like, how are we going to put this together, man?
You got to be creative, right?
You have to be, man. And I was just like on the fours, like, yeah, well, boom, 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 you know what I mean? And it's crazy because I remember the last time I was in jail, I was like, what, you can make a phone call? They're like, yeah, man, you can get phone cards. I'm like, phone cards? Because when I was in jail before,
no phones.
There was no phones. There was 23-hour bang, and that was it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. 23-hour bang up. There was no phone cards. There was none of that. When I was in jail when I was younger, mad.
So jobs.
Well, when I was when I was in DC, I worked in the kitchen at Hollesley Bay. Hollesley Bay was open. Do you know what I mean?
But that was more like military style, no?
Yeah, detention centre. It's like, I remember one time they said to me, listen, right, no talking, yeah? And I remember they said, all right, someone was talking. If one person done something, everyone had to pay. And so you're going to cut the grass. I had to cut the grass with a scissors, bro.
Mad.
That's wild.
And this is like everyone out on the line. Everyone out on the line, here's your scissors, and it was cut the grass with a scissors, bro.
That's crazy.
And it's left, right, and you can't talk unless you have to ask. You couldn't talk. There's no talking unless you have to ask to talk. It's, oh, you can talk now. You get 10 minutes of talking time.
Wow.
And we talk. And then after, even after your PE, you got like 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to be out of that shower, dressed on the line, in your kit, with your bib, ready for inspection. And if one person got it wrong, everyone pays.
Crazy.